Claire Trevor won an Oscar in 1949. She smiled on stage and thanked everyone. But what the audience didn't know was that days before she had been beaten on set so badly, she needed stitches. And that was just the beginning. By 1960, she pawned that same Oscar for $15,000 just to survive. Her friends never knew she was broke. Her family never knew she was drinking between takes. And in 1978, when tragedy struck, she made a decision so painful that even her therapist couldn't help her forgive herself. Today, someone who knew her is finally breaking the silence. Claire Trevor came into the world on March 8, 1910, in a working-class part of Brooklyn called Benenhurst. Her real name was Claire Wen. Her father, Noel, was from Paris and worked as a tailor on Fifth Avenue. Her mother, Betty, was from Belfast, Ireland, and worked as a dressmaker. They weren't rich, and things got harder when Noel's business failed during the Great Depression. By 1915, when Claire was around 5, the family was still scraping by in Brooklyn. But in 1923, something changed. They moved to Larchmont in Westchester County. It was a much wealthier place, filled with people who had far more than they did. Claire felt the difference in every way. The houses were bigger. The clothes were nicer. The girls at school acted like princesses. But even surrounded by wealth, Claire was still the girl with immigrant parents. Still walking around with secondhand clothes. Still remembering nights when the family barely had heat. That made her watch people closely. She started to imitate them, learning how the rich spoke, how they carried themselves. She could read people fast. At just 11 years old, she began acting in school plays, and it was clear she had something. Her voice, her face, the way she used silence, it all grabbed attention. Her mother's Irish fire and her father's Parisian pride ran through her. Being the outsider in Larchmont made her sharper. She was always looking in from the edge, learning how people worked, how they talked, how they hid pain. That would later become her greatest strength. In 1928, when Claire was 18 and a senior at Mamaron High School, she entered a speaking contest. It didn't seem like much, just a local competition. But when she won, something clicked. The prize was $15, which was a lot for a family barely scraping by. Today, that would be over $200. It wasn't just the money, it was the validation. For the first time, Claire felt like someone was saying, "Yes, you belong here." Her parents saw it too. That win convinced them it wasn't a silly dream. Acting could be real. That small victory was the first time she stepped forward without apology. It was the moment that made her believe she had a voice worth hearing. It came at a time when her father's business was failing again. So, every bit of hope mattered. The win didn't just buy a few meals. It changed her future. It sent her straight to Columbia University. But she didn't stay long. She wanted to act, not study textbooks. After 6 months at Columbia, Claire dropped out and enrolled in the American Academy of Dramatic Arts. She was 19. Her parents were nervous. Money was tight, but she was determined. This was the late 1920s when silent films were fading and sound was taking over. Claire threw herself into voice training, scene study, and character work. She learned how to control her voice, how to use silence, how to make a single glance hit hard. In summer 1929, she landed her first stage role with Robert Henderson's repertory company in Michigan. It wasn't glamorous, but it was the beginning. She was now officially a working actress. She had started the path that would shape her life. From 1929 to 1932, she worked constantly. Small theater gigs, summer stock, short films for Vitagraph Studios in Brooklyn. Vitagraph was turning out hundreds of short films during the early sound era, and Claire was in the middle of it. The pay was low, and nobody remembered the actors' names, but it gave her camera experience. She was living at home, commuting to the studio, saving every dollar. In 1931, she joined the Hampton Players in Long Island for summer stock theater. One role after another, she learned to be fast, flexible, and fearless. She wasn't just playing characters, she was becoming them. All of that hard work led to her Broadway debut in 1932 in Whistling in the Dark. That role came exactly 4 years after her high school speech contest, 4 years of nonstop grinding. But now she had made it to Broadway. Back in September 1927, when she was just 17, she'd arrived in New York with only $50. Tuition at the American Academy cost $300 a year, so she worked brutal 12-hour waitress shifts at Tony's in Greenwich Village. One night, she served a man wearing sunglasses and a fake mustache. It was Charlie Chaplin hiding from fans. Claire didn't hesitate. She asked him for advice. He looked up from his plate and told her, "Timing is everything." She remembered that line the next day in acting class. She performed a monologue about a grieving widow, and something changed. Her professor was stunned. He even waived her next month's tuition. 2 years later, on October 28, 1929, the day before the stock market crash, Claire got her first professional stage job as a chorus girl in The Great Lover. The timing was cruel. While people outside were losing their life savings, Claire was cracking jokes on stage. She couldn't help it. She started ad-libbing lines about the market crash. Jokes like, "At least my heart's not crashing like the Dow." The theater owner, who had lost $50,000 in the crash, was furious. He fired her after 2 weeks. She earned just $18 and ended up blacklisted from several theaters. But she learned something vital: how to turn disaster into power. That quick tongue and raw honesty would become her secret weapon in Hollywood. In summer 1930, Claire joined the Mohawk Valley Players, a small theater group touring upstate New York. It was supposed to be a quiet job, but it turned into an acting marathon. She played 15 different roles in 12 weeks. One of the most unforgettable was a cigar-smoking bootlegger's girlfriend in a play called Hooch and Heartbreak. She had never smoked before, but she practiced until she could puff Cuban cigars on stage without coughing. A local paper said she looked like she actually knew real gangsters. She made only $12 a week, plus food, but she walked away with 200 pages of memorized dialogue and 15 character voices she'd never forget. Then came a painful moment. In March 1931, she auditioned for the Ziegfeld Follies. After waiting for hours, she sang her heart out. The legendary producer Florence Ziegfeld looked at her and said she was too plain and forgettable. It crushed her, but instead of giving up, she changed everything. She spent her last $15 to dye her hair platinum blonde and bought a tight black dress from a pawn shop. The next night, she walked into a speakeasy on West 48th Street and asked for a singing job. The owner took one look and said yes. For $8 a night, she sang torch songs in a smoky club until 3 a.m. She dodged drunk hecklers and police raids. She learned to stay calm under pressure, to sing even when her voice trembled. That smoky, husky tone she became known for started right there. By 1932, she was broke, but not broken. She auditioned for a radio serial called The Road of Life. She got the part of Mary Sullivan, a factory worker. In episode 47, when Mary found out her husband had lost his job, Claire's performance made listeners cry. The station got over 300 letters in 1 week. The sponsor, Ovaltine, paid her extra to voice their ads. One day in November, Warner Brothers talent scout Ben Commonson was stuck in traffic listening to episode 52. He heard Claire's voice and pulled over to write down the station number. Within 24 hours, he found her and offered her a screen test. That radio role became her golden ticket. In May 1933, Claire Trevor signed with Fox Studios at age 23. She arrived in Hollywood on May 7th with her parents in tow. Her first film was Life in the Raw, a Western with George O'Brien. It flopped. Critics called her a Jean Harlow copy, which stung, but she got another shot with The Mad Game. Also in 1933, opposite Spencer Tracy, she played a sharp newspaper reporter. That role earned her real fan mail and critical praise. Variety called her performance the best portrayal of a female reporter Hollywood had seen. Best portrayal of a female reporter Hollywood had seen. But Fox didn't treat her like a star. They started loaning her out to other studios just to make quick cash. By 1934, she was stuck in a pattern. Over and over, she got cast as the tough blonde, the bad girl, the hard-boiled dame. Even though she had a refined background and serious acting training, Hollywood didn't care. They just saw the smoky voice and the sharp jawline. She hated the typecast. She once said her voice cracked with a cry when the emotions got too strong. That rawness made her stand out. From 1933 to 1938, she did 29 films. Most of them low-budget B-movies that didn't let her show what she could really do. In 1935, she was cast in Dante's Inferno. There was a fire scene with real flames, and she got dangerously close to them during shooting. It wasn't special effects, it was real fire that scared her. She started demanding safer conditions. For the first time, she pushed back and renegotiated her contract. Between 1933 and 1935, Claire Trevor had become one of the busiest women in Hollywood. In Jimmy and Sally, she took over a part written for another actress and made it her own. She wasn't yet a superstar, but she was unstoppable. The studios saw her as dependable, fast, and tough. When Claire Trevor joined Warner Brothers in 1936, she wasn't given the spotlight. She wasn't the lead in Stella Dallas. She played a smaller role, someone chasing status. But what happened next made people look twice. She got nominated for an Oscar in 1938. Not for Stella Dallas, but for Dead End. That confused everyone. Studios quickly saw her power in emotional family dramas. They offered her $2,000 a week, which would be about $37,000 today. But Claire said no. She didn't want to be locked into playing mothers. In 1937, very few actors, especially women, had the courage to say no to powerful studios. But she did, and that no changed everything. Dead End, filmed in 1937, she played Francine, a woman dying from syphilis. The makeup wasn't fake. William Wyler, the director, gave her worn-out heels, a dirty bag, and said she couldn't fix her hair or wear makeup. They built a $75,000 replica of the East River slums instead of filming in real locations. Her death scene was so raw that Humphrey Bogart was shaken. Claire earned another Oscar nomination, standing beside stars like Mae Whitty. Bogart later said watching her changed the way he acted. But behind the scenes, things weren't calm. Claire didn't like her dialogue. She thought her lines made her look cheap. One day, she marched up to Wyler and asked to rewrite everything. That had never been done, especially not by a woman. Wyler got furious and threatened to fire her. But producer Samuel Goldwyn noticed her rewritten version during rehearsals and changed his mind. Turns out Claire had been working secretly with Lillian Hellman, the screenwriter. That caused problems. Huntz Hall accused her of trying to steal the spotlight. Even so, critics loved her new depth. Variety wrote she had surprising emotional sophistication. The fight with Wyler never really ended, but it gave her the respect of the press and the audience. Then came the amazing Dr. Clitterhouse. In 1938, Claire played a criminal named Joe Keller. To prepare, she hired a real pickpocket named Fingers Murphy for $50 a week. That's nearly $900 today. She practiced by secretly stealing wallets and watches from Warner Brothers staff during lunch breaks. She'd return them with notes signed by her character. At first, Bogart thought it was funny, but she kept stealing his things, his lucky coin, his glasses. He got annoyed and hid her scripts and costume jewelry. The prank war delayed filming by 3 days until the director had to step in. The training worked so well, she even stole a reporter's notebook by accident. That story spread through the studio like wildfire. In 1939, she starred in Allegheny Uprising and did her own stunts. On October 15th, her horse stumbled. She slammed into a wooden fence and broke her wrist in 2 places. She didn't stop. She got back on the horse and finished the scene. Even though her wrist was swelling, she refused painkillers because she said she needed her mind clear. Later that day, X-rays showed she had been acting for 6 hours with compound fractures. The studio was furious, but the footage was perfect, so they used it in the final film. That moment became part of Hollywood history. Also, in 1939, she played Dallas in Stagecoach. There was a scene where a woman insulted her. Claire slapped her. That slap wasn't in the script. She improvised it because she had seen extras being treated badly on set. John Ford kept the scene. That moment built a bond between her and John Wayne. He later said she had more guts than most men in this town. The film made $1.1 million from a $392,000 budget and made her a star. That role became the blueprint for Western heroines. By 1944, during Murder, My Sweet, Claire did voice work for just $500 over 3 days. But when she found out the studio planned to leave her name out of the credits, she fought back. On February 15th, she told RKO to pay her $5,000 or she'd sue for professional damage. They agreed within 48 hours. She got her credit and the money. That changed how actresses handled uncredited work. She used that momentum to raise her rate from $15,000 to $35,000 per film by 1945. Then in 1947, came Born to Kill. Claire was hiding something. Every day she was drinking, hiding flasks in her dressing room, sometimes taking 6 shots of whiskey just to steady herself. The crew noticed her hands shaking, so they moved filming to early mornings when she was most stable. Her co-star, Lawrence Tierney, was also battling alcoholism, and they drank together between scenes. The budget was supposed to be $450,000, but doubled because of delays. Yet, critics loved her. One line stuck: "I'm Poison Ivy in a wedding ring." That role felt too real because she was falling apart inside. A year later, in 1948, she filmed Key Largo. Her role as Gay Dawn required her to be beaten on screen. On June 23, during a late-night shoot, a prop slap from Edward G. Robinson went wrong. His ring hit her cheekbone and left a real bruise that needed 3 stitches. But they kept filming. The take was perfect. That performance won her the Oscar. She made $50,000 from that film, the most she'd ever earned. The movie made $3.2 million. When she got on stage to accept the award on March 24, 1949, she spoke for just 23 seconds and cried. That moment became one of the most emotional in Oscar history. Later that year, in Raw Deal, she used real pain to act. Her husband, Clark Andrews, had cheated on her with her best friend. That betrayal burned deep. In one scene, she lights matches while talking about revenge. She improvised everything. That take lasted 4 minutes, but they trimmed it to 90 seconds. Her tears weren't acting, they were real. The movie cost $750,000 and made $1.8 million. Everyone said her performance felt terrifyingly real. In November 1948, she married Milton Brin in Mexico. Her divorce had just been finalized 3 months earlier. She let him adopt her son Charles, even renaming him. She cut down on movies, saying no to offers that could have earned her $200,000 a year. She wanted to focus on her new family. They lived in Beverly Hills. And she raised not just Charles, but Milton's 2 sons, too. By the early 1950s, she testified during the McCarthy hearings. She stayed vague on purpose to avoid getting blacklisted. Around the same time, she acted in a TV episode about a woman finding out her dead husband was a Nazi. That role terrified her. She said it felt like acting out her worst fear. She lost 15 pounds from stress and started getting anxiety attacks. She kept quiet while others like Marsha Hunt were blacklisted. Her silence saved her career, but the fear never went away. She couldn't sleep for years. In 1949, she turned down *I Married a Communist*. which would have paid her $100,000, almost $1.2 million today. 13 directors had already refused the script. She said, "I'd rather starve than sell my soul to this McCarthyite garbage." She was blacklisted from 3 major films and lost $300,000 in offers. But she kept her integrity. $1,000 in offers. But she kept her integrity. In 1954, she reunited with John Wayne for The High and the Mighty. He was secretly battling stomach cancer. Claire kept his secret, fed him special meals, and covered for him on set. He was so grateful he gave her $10,000 from his own pocket and promised her more roles. The film got her another Oscar nomination. Wayne later moved 2 minutes away from her home. They became neighbors and sailing buddies. He called her my guardian angel. She called him Superman. By 1960, Milton's real estate empire collapsed. Claire had to sell her jewelry, including a $75,000 diamond necklace from Howard Hughes and $50,000 emerald earrings. She even pawned her Oscar for $15,000. They almost lost their house. Friends never knew. She still hosted dinner parties while secretly cutting costs. That experience haunted her and later pushed her into charity work. She never forgot what it felt like to almost lose everything. In 1962, while filming 2 weeks in another town, she broke down. Her character was bitter and the lines hit too close. Her son Charles had just been arrested twice. He was drinking heavily. During one scene, she cried uncontrollably for over an hour and admitted to the director she was scared of becoming irrelevant. She was 52 and felt Hollywood was moving on without her. Then in 197,